Hey guys, it's Django here. Today I thought I would step back into Reason for a change and basically start making a track using the track template that I shared in a previous video. Basically that video was quite sort of theoretical and explained how it worked, but without many proper examples of what's going on. So I figured today might be a good chance to basically demonstrate how it's used, and hopefully that becomes more useful to people. Also, let me know if you downloaded it. Let me know if you have any interest in it. Yeah, I'd be keen to hear from some of you guys. I know I got quite a few subscribers after a Reason video of mine, and I've been posting mostly Reason Reaper content. So yeah, Reaper is my primary DAW, but I quite enjoy switching it up sometimes, even if there are features I miss in Reason. Those features would include a keyboard shortcut to solo. You have to actually press solo, and then it's also only soloed in the arrangement. Let's say I solo this blank slate. It's not soloed here. It's just soloing the MIDI. I don't know. The workflow is a little bit clunky sometimes, and you can't resize a track on its own. You sort of have to resize them all together. There's no, like, you can't grab, you can fold tracks, but you can't expand one just to work on it closely. There are no keyboard shortcuts for switching grid sizes. Yeah, so, and also a huge gripe of mine in Reason is the F5 for the mixer, to maximize that quick, F6 for the rack, and F7 for the sequencer. In Reason 5 and before, you had Control 1 and Control 2 to switch between rack and sequencer. I don't know why they didn't just add the mixer as Control 3. Like, I can press those shortcuts without looking at my screen, and they do nothing. Why? F5 and F6 and F7. Sure, on my keyboard, on a computer keyboard, they're spaced, but on a laptop, they're all crammed together, and they're as far from either of your hands typing as you could possibly get. It's not ergonomic in any way, so that's, yeah, it really irritates me. Sure, add shortcuts, but don't take shortcuts away. Come on. Anyway, with that rant aside, I do love Reason, and some of their instruments and plugins are very unique. Like Scream is such an incredible distortion. I wish I had that as a VST sometimes. It's got so many different algorithms, and it's a real interesting sound design tool, the Scream. The Echo is also great. I don't really have an equivalent in Reaper. You can sort of make filtered ping pong delays if you put two delays after each other, which I do in my template, but it's not like a tape style. But then you could obviously have another plugin like Tell Dub. But yeah, there are things that are lovely about Reason. So let us start with this empty combinator. I've just got a mixer in here. It's pre-routed, so as soon as I drag an instrument into this blank slate, it'll be combined. So if I drag in Europa and we select this for playing with my keyboard. Interestingly, I have my headphone volumes down. Cool. So we're getting sound from this Europa, and then we can obviously put other synths inside it, and they'll be routed to this mixer. And it's just an easy way to combine things. I generally just chuck things into it in case I need to combine things later. It's also helpful for older instruments like Subtractor, that there's more things you can modulate inside the instrument, inside the combinator, than inside Subtractor itself. So it just adds a bit of flexibility, even if you're not combining things, just to be able to use the combinator. So I've also got that blank slate saved. So if we go into my Reason patches folder, I have it here. And it's exactly the same thing. I've also taken away names on the scribble strip, so if I do name something, I can clearly see which ones have things assigned to them rather than them all saying macro 1, macro 2, macro 3. It's sort of a self-explanatory label. So those are two things that help me increase my productivity, being able to layer things quickly. So let's just make a quick sound. Let's turn this into sort of a saw of some sort. Perhaps I'll use a filter. All right, super basic. This is purely for demonstration purposes. Let us sidechain that sound before we even have any drums. So I have this ghost sidechain rack, and this knob selects different patterns. So you'll see we're on pattern 6 right now. If I move this kick selector, you'll see it goes to pattern 5 through to 1. And pattern 1 has the first kick sequenced on quarter notes. You could obviously change the rhythm if you need a different side chaining pattern. And then we go to number 2. Kick 2 is selected. So all these kicks have different length decays. So I can use a shorter kick for a sort of snappy side chain sound, basically. So I had it on 6. I think that was a relatively short one. That pattern 6 and kick 6. So then each of those kicks, if I press a note, you'll see it's going into the stereo imager, as are all of them. It's literally just the main output. And what the stereo imager is doing is, what is it doing actually? Doesn't appear to be doing much. Oh, perhaps it's monoing the low end. It's just to make sure it's a mono signal, so it's the same on the left and the right. And then I have these splitters splitting that signal. So I can grab this kick and stick it into a compressor. Even though we're not hearing the kick, there's no channel for this rack. So let us quickly get a compressor. These M-class compressors are already wired up. So my effects can receive, well, if I switch them on, then my reverb here will be sidechained to this ghost sidechain. So it's helpful sometimes to sidechain your effects to a particular sequence. But for what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to duplicate this compressor by holding Control and Shift. On a Mac, it'll be Command and Shift. And you'll see that when I drag, we're getting the little plus symbol, which means it'll make a duplicate. And with Shift, it will auto wire it for us. So now it is wired to Europa with one drag. That's pretty handy. I'm going to switch it on, grab this kick from any of these spare outputs, and I'm going to put it in the sidechain in. So now you can hear it's pulsing to this kick. If I change the pattern, so that's kind of handy. Now this combinator over here, sorry, this is the wrong one. Down here, main drums. This is 2 redrums stacked together. So if I load a kick drum into this first slot, let's go into drum supply. Why not? I'm still getting to know the new pack of sounds that comes with Reason 10. That's quite nice. I'll start with that perhaps. So now when I press that note on my keyboard, I need to find the right octave. I think I need to go down to -1 on my keyboard, yeah. So when I press that note, you'll see it triggers this redrum as well. So they're basically just stacked on top of each other. And then each drum is routed to one of these stereo splitters. So you'll see 1A corresponds to this. 9A, what is that? Sorry. 7A would correspond to this slot here. And then these are the same for this. And so you'll see the kick comes into this stereo imager. All that allows me to do is solo the highs for like a quick high pass shelf or a quick low pass shelf. It's quite handy if I want to stack a top kick down here, and I can just quickly use these buttons to sort of decide which parts are where. And then from here, so you'll see each of these, number 1 is routed here and so on. From there, each of them are routed into this mixer. So redrum 1 comes into mixer 1 and redrum 2 comes into mixer 2. And I believe they share reverb sends between them. So there's a reverb send. And this is all contained within one combinator. So perhaps I layer that on top. Now we're hearing them both. I might just solo the high band for this one. Perhaps I'll solo the low band for that one. That's actually kind of nice. Perhaps we take down the reverb on this though, and turn it up on that one. How did I wire that? Redrum has this facility built in where you can daisy chain auxiliaries from the aux sends into these. What does it say there? It hides some cables. I'm going to click away from both. There we go. So they're chaining auxiliary. So from this mixer into there, that means they all share the same reverb sends that are on this first redrum. Cool. So we've got a kick drum. I'm just going to quickly find a snare. Maybe I want to layer a clap with that. Let's try that one. I'm going to get a hi-hat real quick. I'm going to enlarge these a bit. I just used Control and Scroll. To zoom horizontally, it's Control, Shift, and Scroll. And to record, we're on main drums, Control and Enter. So this is an issue with this workflow, is if I solo something on the one mixer or the one redrum, it doesn't solo on the other. So what I often end up doing is splitting things onto different MIDI layers, MIDI lanes, and then I can just mute the other MIDI lanes, or I just play it on my keyboard. I think it still needs an EQ, even with that high pass. I may as well use a stock one. I would prefer to use a VST, but to demonstrate, I may as well just use the stock plugins. By the way, I have input quantize turned on down here. Quantize notes during recording. If you press F8, you obviously get to this tool window where you can turn it on here as well. And you can set the swing amount, or rather the quantize amount. So I have it set to 75 at the moment. Something about this kick isn't sitting right with me. Cool. Let us add some sort of shaker or top loop. I'm going to close this combinator, unsolo, and let's look in loop supply, percussion. I've turned off autoplay. I was jamming with some people. Ooh, unknown exception. Interesting. So I'm just going to try load one. Oh boy. This is a bit of a fail. I'm going to Google this and come back. Let us go for loops and give them a BPM range up to say 130. Click update. Let's say percussion, and let's see what we have. That's quite nice. So I'm just dragging it in, and looks like it's a little bit slower than our BPM, so I'm going to grab the edge and hold Control to drag it into, to sort of stretch it or compress it into time. I'm going to add a bit of swing, so I have this in the template as well, sort of a shuffle already set up in the Regroove mixer. So I'm going to try and delay this loop. If I double click on it right now, you'll see it gives us sort of transient detection markers. But instead of doing that, I'm going to go into comp edit. Let's zoom this in. What I'm thinking of doing is simply turning snap off and nudging it forwards like that. Maybe less than that. Feels a little bit better to me. I'm going to add some more hi-hats and things. Let's get something going in this next combinator. Also, I have this workflow of sticking all my drums on the left and all my instruments on the right. So I'm just going to move this across to where my drums are. I'm going to select this for playing and load another instrument. I'm going to go for Europa again, just for simplicity. That's very low, actually. I wouldn't mind some sort of a harmonic, higher harmonic. Self-multiply, it sounds interesting. Ooh, strange. Perhaps it's a hard sync. Ooh. Folded sync. That's kind of close. I mean, I could just use another waveform. In fact, I might as well do that. I will layer another sine wave an octave up and just turn it down. Now we've got a nice sub. Sounds quite nice. Phase sync, I think that re-triggers at the exact same sort of start point each note. That's better, it sounds a little bit more consistent now. Let us get some mono legato going. Legato. Turn up the glide time. Maybe I need to turn it on here. Yeah. Cool. It's been a while since I've used Reason. Now it's always gliding, regardless of whether the notes overlap or not. If I set it to auto, it'll only do it when they overlap. Cool, let's add something else to this. Take the sustain down. This one is needing to sync phase. Now it sounds consistent. So I might want to add a little bit of space to this. I'm going to add a unison as an ascend. Now when I turn this up, things get a bit wider, but we still have that center image because it's only on ascend and not affecting the whole signal. I can also stick an EQ or stereo imager before it and solo just the high band. So now it's only affecting the treble. I could even add a reverb. And it's also going to only affect the treble. We should probably take it a step further and just make sure by going to the EQ and turning down the lows on the EQ. So now maybe we want to make this filter open up using the mod wheel. I'll select performance, mod wheel, destination, filter, frequency, and turn it up. Or we could try filter mod. It is not an option, but I'll bet you it's an option in here. Source mod wheel, destination, filter, filter mod. Perhaps we'll turn up the resonance as well. At the low value, we should have some modulation. There we go. Now, I like to keep mod wheel on a separate lane where possible. So I'll press comma to add another lane. And that should be that. As a general rule, I name things in the arrangement because then it carries through to the device and to the track. Whereas if you name it here, it applies to the track and not to the arrange, I think. So yeah, I find it's the easiest is to just name things here, and let's call this pad. I feel like some electric piano. I'm going to go to Reason Sounds, Keys and Chords, Electric Pianos. Let's see what this sounds like. Perfect. Should probably duplicate the loop. One, two, three, four, five. Do that. Also, I should turn off that input quantize. I'm going to add some delay. The other thing I will do is route all my instruments to this instrument group and drums to the drums. Cool, I hope you guys found that useful in some way. Cheers.